Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I'm your host, Kimberly Cloud. I have a very special guest here for the show today. Can you go ahead and announce to the world who you are and where you are calling from?
My name is Kenton Hall. I'm originally from Canada. I live in Lincoln in the UK now.
Okay. And can we go ahead and dig into your past leading up to
Absolutely.
the present?
Where do you want me to start? With the past, I'm assuming?
It doesn't even matter what part of your past, whatever you want to talk about.
Okay. Well, I was born in a little prairie city called Estevan in Saskatchewan to English parents, so I have both citizenships, which is how I ended up back over here. Grew up in Canada. I was raised in a really strict religious cult, which didn't suit my personality at all. I live with bipolar disorder, so those two things combined made childhood interesting. And then I came to the UK, and I've been here since I was 19 years old, and eventually became professionally a writer, musician, actor, director, kind of sort of in a general relationship with the arts. I love the arts. I'm not always sure it loves me back, but I do my best.
Tell me about the first job you had. Yeah.
Not professionally, but the first job I had, my first proper job when I was 16, I worked in an electronics store, which was selling at the time, and this will age me, laser discs. They were the new exciting thing on the market, massive vinyl size CD looking things, and we were next to a Blockbuster Video when that was still a thing, but Laserdiscs hadn't really taken off, so we were trying to sell the players, but we only had borrowed 2 Laserdiscs from the store next door, and one was Terminator 2, and one was The Man from Snowy River. And the reason why I still remember this is because I had to watch them every single day for 4 months while it was on in the store. And The Man from Snowy River, that was fine. I saw that about 1,000 times. Terminator 2 was on 2 sides of the disc, but the manager was like, "You're not here to watch movies, so you're not allowed to turn the disc over." So I saw the first half of Terminator 2, which I had never seen before, literally 500 times before one day the manager went out to buy coffee, and I was like, "I've had enough of this. I'm turning the disc over. I have to see the other half of the movie." And that is just like so lodged in my memory of working in a day job that I think that's why I've done my damnedest to avoid them ever since.
Yeah. So tell me about the professional jobs that you have had.
I started really as a musician. I'd had a couple of short stories published in like little presses and stuff, just really indie stuff. But when I moved to England, it was music and songwriting that I was sort of taking the most seriously, and it was the thing that caught. I'd always written all sorts of stuff, but music was the first thing that kind of started to become a career path. And for a long time, from the time I was about 22 or 23, I was in a band called IST. And we made 3 albums that were critically acclaimed, but we were broke. We never broke through the mainstream. We got great reviews, and everyone that heard the records seemed to like them, but just not enough people heard the records, which I think is the story of a lot of bands. But I'm still very proud of the work we did, and brilliantly, like with the digital age, those albums still exist and can be discovered afresh. I mean, possibly when I'm dead, but I'll take it however it comes. So yeah, I spent about 10 years on the road as a musician. And I was a really young dad as well, so I had like two little girls, and I was sort of like trying to do that and tour the country with a band and make records and generally just try to keep my head above water, because obviously there's 2 stages in music: either you're making loads of money or you're making zip, and we stayed firmly in the zip camp for a very long time. And when the band split up, I had been sort of moving back to acting, which I'd trained as, and started writing film scripts. And so I started doing a lot more, because I was kind of, if you're in a band for a long time, basically you're locked with your best friends in an elevator for 24 hours a day, about 19 days a week, it felt like. And so when it finishes, it's kind of like a breakup, even though we'd stayed friends. So I kind of didn't want to look at music for a while. I wanted to do something else. So I started making short films, eventually made a feature film called A Dozen Summers.
What was that about?
Dozen Summers was a, by the time I made it, my girls were about 11, 12 years old, and I'd kind of been watching them and their friends, and I realized that we talk all the time about sort of like coming of age films, like people looking at that next stage in life and where it's going to take them. But when I was looking them at their friends when they were like 11, 12, they were busy being 11 and 12. Like they, as far as they were concerned, that was their life, and the things that went on were super important. And it was grown-ups that were weird, and I was like, I need to make a movie about that. And again, we did it like so indie, and like we raised the money ourselves, we put our own money into it. We probably had the sandwich budget for even a normal indie film to make it, and it's on Netflix now. We made it back in 2014, 2015, and eventually Netflix kind of picked it up, and it'll eventually make its money back. But it was just one of those things. I think my whole career has been a case of not waiting for permission to do things. And I mean, half of that's probably my natural impatience, being bipolar, where if I'm in a manic mood and I'm driven towards something, I give it all the energy I have until I fall over. But I'm proud of the fact that we've done a lot of things people I've collaborated with, or myself, done a lot of things that people said we couldn't or shouldn't do, and we did them anyway. And that's kind of, in a lot of ways, that's what's kind of kept me going, is that even when it's tough, it's never stopped me from making things, even sometimes when it probably should have done. So I long ago decided that the only way for chasing success not to make you miserable and to not make you completely insane, and I have to be careful about veering towards insanity, is to define what success is for yourself. And for me, it's a body of work that I can be proud of and that I keep adding to with every project that I do, because everything else, the financial success or the mainstream awareness, that's luck more than anything else. There are so many great artists who are making genuinely great things that no one's ever heard of. And yeah, that makes life hard, makes dated life very hard sometimes. But I think provided you're still giving everything you've got to what you do, I think you can hold your head high and just, hope that work survives to be discovered by someone somewhere down the line. Because I think storytelling is important. And I consider everything I do to be some form of storytelling. Because storytelling is how we make connections with other people. It's a way of explaining ourselves and letting other people explain themselves and meeting in the middle. And I've been to films that haven't been big box office hits, and I've sat there in the dark with the projector going, and I've thought, oh my God, I feel less alone for having seen this movie. I feel like someone out there thinks a little bit like me, and I'm not completely alone in the way that I'm feeling. And so for me, I'm kind of chasing giving that feeling to other people if I can, at some point in some way. And the rest of the time, I just have to do what I think is best at any given moment, which isn't always right, but it's all I got. So
how did the process go to end up on Netflix, your movie?
Oh, it's weird. I think sometimes people only see the sort of big end where you go to Sundance Festival and everyone bids for your movie. And with us, it was just, we had a distributor that, well, we had a little cinema run, just in indie cinemas in the UK. It was put out on DVD. This was nearly 10 years ago when that was still a thing. And then the distributors and sales agents, they're just constantly working to try and find ways of getting sort of new revenue for their artists out of the films that they have in their catalog. And they got, trust me, there was no massive Netflix payday, but they, I think I get something like £200 or like $400 every 3 months for it being on Netflix. But it's still, that pays some bills sometimes, and it pays bills with money that I earn from making something. And I think I can really genuinely, even when it's hard, I consider myself lucky, because I know how many people out there just aren't able to make any living at all out of the art they want to make. And I think sometimes it's just they don't know that it's not one big break. It's 1,000 little breaks that come from sort of working incredibly hard and taking opportunities that come your way. And sometimes eventually you can take 1,000 little breaks and you can build it into a career. And you still would love for one thing to just catch fire, because you wouldn't have that last week of the month when the bills are about to come out and your ulcer starts to play up because you're not sure where the money's coming from. Well, that's every working person's life. But you can make a living doing what you love. I kind of sacrificed security for my freedom, the freedom to do what I do well, or certainly better than I do anything else. And yeah, that's meant some sacrifices along the way. But I do, every morning I get up and I do something that I'm invested in. I don't always want to do it when I get up. There's something about taking all of your hobbies and turning them into your jobs. It means you have no hobbies left anymore. But I love, but when it's rolling, and when I see the end results, or hear the end result with the audio drama stuff, it's still a thrill. That's never gone away. It's still a thrill if I hear a song of mine on the radio. It's still a thrill when a book comes out. It's still a thrill when you see a finished film, or you hear a finished audio and know that you conjure that out of your imagination and now it's a real thing. That's still exciting. And I think the day it stops being exciting is the day that I'll stop, and find something else to ruin my life with.
Well said. I wanted to know about your the comic memoir Bisection.
Yeah, that again, this is one of those happy accidents. I'd been doing a lot of film stuff, and A Dozen Summers had been very hard, and it had been a very emotionally wrecking, and I was in a very low place for 2 or 3 years after it,
Right.
with life stuff that was going on as well. And having lived with bipolar disorder like all my life, I'd always kind of written like little bits online about it, and I'd always tried to find the funny in what were sometimes very dark situations. But what happened was I'd ordered a book from a publisher, Chinbeard Books, who are now my publishers, and it had got lost in the mail somewhere. So I emailed the publishers to go, oh, sorry, I just wanted to let you know this book I ordered got lost in the mail. Is it possible you could send out a replacement? But I wrote a funny email because I felt bad asking. And the guy is a small publisher. So the actual guy who ran the publisher answered the email, and I'd made him laugh. And so we kind of became sort of like social media friends first. And he was seeing all the stuff I was writing that I didn't even consider to be my proper writing. It was just like day to day, I'd write a little essay about what had happened that day or stuff that I was going through. And he sent me a message, and he said, do you want to turn this into a book? And he said, we could collect the stuff that you've written already. And I'm like, no, if I'm going to write about bipolar and about my kids and how we've kind of got through that together, then I want to write it as a book properly. So I sent him over like a sample chapter of what I was thinking, and that was it. That was the beginning of the book. And I would like to say, like, I think it is probably, I think I'm not hesitating saying that it's probably the funniest book about mental illness that's ever been written, because there aren't a lot of funny books, because sometimes living with a mental illness can be incredibly absurd. And yeah, it is serious, and I absolutely take it seriously and take my self-care seriously. But if I didn't laugh about some of the places I've ended up, or about some of the ways in which my life had been impacted, then I'd be worse off. It would affect my mental illness more not to laugh at it than it would to actually try to find a vein of humor. But it's not just about bipolar disorder. It's also about being a parent. And my kid's mom and I split up 12, 13, 14 years ago. So there was a lot of kind of parenting on my own when I was sort of dealing with mental illness and being a creative. So, my girls and I became very close because I was very honest with them about the challenges that I had, some of the limitations that I faced. And also, like, parenting is hilarious. It's ridiculous on a daily basis. And having twins as well makes it weirder, because twins are weird. Twins are very weird creatures. And I love my daughters very much. And I think I think they'd like me to stop writing about them so often, but also I think they'd be devastated if I stopped writing about them so often, and they'd be wondering, "Wait, hold on," because they're 22 now, which is appalling. Because last time I checked, I was 22, so I don't know what happened there. That everything's gone horribly, horribly wrong. So yeah, that's probably one of the things I'm most proud of, is that book, because it was a lot of my job sometimes is writing things that people come to me and they go, "We have this idea, could you write it?" Or I'm collaborating with someone, or we're adapting something. So sometimes the projects that are like mine from the very beginning are the ones that are like closest to my heart. And Bisection was my first full-length published book, so it has a special place there as well. And I read it back recently. For some reason, I had to check an edition that was being reprinted, and I really was really proud of it. And I think sometimes it's considered sort of like bad form to be too happy with your own work, and I'm not usually. I'm usually very critical of my own work. But that book, I did what I meant to do, and that's the best I think you can hope for with a job. Is like, I got down on the page what I wanted to get down on the page. Now it's for other people to judge whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I did what I set out to do with that book. And I hope, and I've had messages from people who have said that it helped them sort of reframe their own struggles with mental health, and help them to kind of, again, realize that they weren't alone in it, and that there were other people out there that were fighting and having full lives and able to do what they wanted to do. Now, some people find mental health conditions extremely debilitating, and I'm not a proponent of just because I can run a career and do all these things that everyone can. I'm very fortunate that I have the right medicine, that I have the right support system, that I'm able to do what I do. I know that is luck. But I also, want people to feel like there's someone out there telling them that your illness is not the entirety of who you are. However badly it affects you, it isn't you. It's a disease, and it sucks that you have it. And there's sometimes you just have to say that, man, this really sucks. But it's not who you are, and that there's a lot of people who I think have been made to feel as though their illness defines them, because sometimes it makes them act in ways that other people find strange, or it makes them struggle with relationships, or it makes them vulnerable to environments that they can't control. And all of those things are huge challenges if they're outside of the way the world's built. But the person you are at your core, who you are, who you love, what you want from life, what you think about the world, that's the thing to hold on to, because mental illness does try to take that away. And I think if Bisection is for anything, it's for saying it doesn't have to take all of that away, however hard it gets. So also, I think it's really funny because that's been how comedy has helped me survive a great many traumatic events in my life, from my crappy childhood right through to mental illness and all the normal slings and arrows that a man in his 40s has faced in the course of his time. But it also gives you empathy, which is so key these days. Everything that's wrong with the world is down to lack of empathy. And it's the same thing. It's like, I was talking to a friend today about a script that we were developing, and she was talking about her experience of feminism, and she was talking about how she went to a group once, and then she was speaking to some women of color, and it wasn't because she hadn't thought about it, but she had a blind spot about how much more women of color were going through by comparison to what her experience had been, even though her experience had been challenging. And so I think, having been in a position where I know that I've been dealing with things that other people can't see from the outside, I go into situations now assuming that I don't know the whole story about people, that because I haven't lived their life, because I haven't had their experience, I can't judge them from what I see, because I have no right. I don't have enough knowledge. I don't know what they've been through. I don't know what their history is. If they have a different lived experience to me, I don't know how that's affected the path of their life, or the choices that they make, or what kind of day they're having. So it's given me something that I really hold on dear to, which is a little bit of breathing space to actually remember to think about other people, and remember that they're full people with internal lives that are going through exactly the same mix and melee of things that you are. And I think if all of us spent a little bit more time thinking about what's happening on the inside of other people, then we wouldn't have half the problems that we have in the world. Because the way we get away with our unkindnesses and our wars and our genocides and our violence and our bigotry is because we pretend that people aren't people. We treat them as cutouts. If you actually think of someone as a person who feels the way that you do, it becomes a goddamn sight harder to impugn on their freedoms and their safety and their well-being. So and then, I'm still going to get it wrong a million times between now and the end of my days. But if surviving mental illness has taught me anything, it's to take that beat and think. And it's one of the things that I work on still every day. It's one of the things I try to get into my writing, that I'm, that I might be, I write what I want to write because you have to, but I want to put something out there that if someone came across it, that they would find something in it that spoke to them rather than someone speaking at them, so it's a work in progress. I'm a work in progress, like everybody, but I prize empathy and kindness above all else, and that's something I've had to learn because I was a very angry young man. I'd been beaten around and abused, and my brain didn't work properly, and I was spitting fire and nails, and I don't think I was ever deliberately unkind, but I sure as hell did unkind things out of obliviousness or not paying attention or not taking the time to think. And that's not who I want to be. So that's who I've tried to push past to someone at least good 15% better than that.
So,
but I'm still working on it.
Where are you headed? Because you done made so many movies and you co-wrote a lot of things. And so what I want to know is, because we're crunched for time, is
Yeah, of course.
you see yourself going in the future? And well said about what you said.
Oh no, I think being kind should be the bottom rung, and up from there. So, but yeah, I mean, London After Midnight is the thing we did most recently, which is an audio adaptation of a lost classic silent horror film from the 20s, and it was a way of kind of rescuing a piece of media that's lost. It's gone. It burned up in a fire in the 60s. There's no prints of it left, but it's the pictures from it have been very iconic in film history. So when it came into the public domain, we decided we would make a new adaptation with audio, and starring Art Malik and a lot of really Dan Starkey, Beth Eyre, a lot of great audio actors, and Art Malik's obviously kind of big film star as well. And I think we want to do more of that. We'd like to sort of rescue a few more lost classic pieces and bring them to new life. But that means people need to go and buy London After Midnight. But yeah, I've always got stories in my head. I think this year I've got a novel of my own that I need to crowbar some time to write. Something that's a story that's really important to me, and I think I need to spend some time with it. But of course, I've also got to eat in the meantime. So yeah, I'm just going to keep writing and acting and playing music. I've got a new album at the moment. I put out a triple album last year. So yes, yeah, go buy Idiopath as well, because that needs more ears. But I think my goal for the future is that I keep getting better at what I do, because that's the way it should work. You should take the next stage all the time. I think a lot of the sort of industries I've worked in have this very youth-orientated thing where it's like, oh, you do your best work when you're in your 20s. And I'm like, you do your best nothing when you're in your 20s. And you don't make good decisions. You don't do anything your best in your 20s. And if you are, then the rest of your life has gone massively downhill. In classical times, people started as apprentices in crafts, and then they worked and they trained and they got better and better, and then they became masters of their crafts. I'm 30 years off being a master of my craft, and that's if I ever even get that far. So I'm just trying to be better, and I know what I want to write about. I know the kind of things I want to write, and I just want to work hard and hopefully write stories of every kind that will mean something to people. And if it means something beautiful to one person, I've done my job. If it means something beautiful to more than one person, I might be able to afford dinner. But that's the game I play.
Okay, and if you had to, last question, if you had to give advice to someone who's bipolar, schizophrenic, and depressed, or whatever, arena, the mental health arena that they're in, tell me what form of advice, because you just gave perfect advice, by the way, but I just want to, fish around for 2 more minutes with you.
Yeah, of course,
talking
yeah.
about that. Go ahead.
I hesitate to give, like, because any advice I give, it won't fit every person, because I think that's also important, is that everyone who's living with a mental illness, whether it has the same label or not, it's their own experience and it's very different for everyone. But I do say that the thing that saved me was actually talking about it. I've seen it. I've spoken to people. I've seen a look in their eyes when you say you're bipolar, and that you see fear back, and that is so crushing. Particularly if it's someone like up to that point that you respected or that you liked or thought that liked you, but they see the mental illness and they get afraid. But if you find the right people, if you find the people who are actually your people, and you talk about it openly, and you say, these are the things that I'm going through, this is what I'm feeling, and I do want help. It's one of the hardest things to do. Pride gets in the way, fear gets in the way, the stigma that's in our society gets in the way. But speak to the people you love, and explain it the best that you can, because it's the only way to move forward with it. And you may never get rid of it. There are some conditions like mine, they're never going away. Doesn't matter, I have the right medication now, it may stop working in 5 years time. They may have to try again, they may have to find something else, it may just get worse. I know that, and I live with that every day. But in the meantime, while I have the capacity, I know that some people find it difficult to talk about. So because I am gifted with the desire to talk at length and say many, many, many words, then I'm going to talk about it for other people as well as myself, until they find the words to speak on their own behalf. Because I just ended up wordy. It wasn't anything I did. I was born this way. So it's an accident. So I'm going to use that happy accident for some good if I can.
Okay, and how can the people, well said, how can the people reach you?
Oh, I am very open online. So if you go to @Kenton Hall on Twitter, I'm not calling it X. I'm going to call it Elon's Folly. That's its official name from here on in. Or I can be found on Facebook, Instagram. Come and find me, because I'm always happy to have a talk with people if you have questions about anything. All my books and audio dramas and albums and stuff, just type my name. There's not many Kenton Halls about. There's me in one building somewhere around here. We're the two Kenton Halls. So if you type my name into Google, you will find my stuff. And if you have any questions about my stuff, just click the link. You'll probably find me. And I answer pretty quick.
Thank you. Stay on the line. Everybody, y'all take care. Thank you so much for watching my show, and y'all take care. Be safe, and I'll see y'all another time. Bye-bye.